All right, guys, what do you think the UFC does from here? Obviously, Alex Pereira lost a close fight. A lot of people thought that Alex won. A lot of people thought Uncle Ive won. I personally thought that Uncle Ive won. I think he did enough to get the victory. He had the bigger moments in the fight for sure. And now he's champion. But the problem is he is not a super exciting, super marketable champion the same way that Alex Pereira was. And so the question is, what are they going to do with this now? By the way, before we get into it, if you wouldn't mind hitting the like and subscribe button, helps the YouTube algorithm, helps grow the channel. So to me, I think the first thing that they probably look at doing is do an immediate rematch, right? Alex Pereira defended his belt 3 times. He saved the UFC 3 times in 2024. So, if that's something that he wants to do, and I think they'll probably make that happen, they probably do that immediate rematch. And I think, he has a really good chance in that rematch, but Magomed Ankalaev did show that he kind of exposed some flaws in Alex Pereira. Like, he definitely, put the clinch in there. Alex seemed to be worried about the takedown, so he was moving backwards a lot to give himself space and time to prep for the shot, and that's not really his style, right? So he was kind of fighting fighting in a way that he's not used to, right? He's usually the guy going forward, landing the big shots, doing the big damage, but that just wasn't happening there. And anytime he started to get any type of momentum, Ankalaev clinched, right? And that was so really solid game plan from Ankalaev. So I think number one, what they do is they try to do that rematch, right, and get Alex Pereira back in a championship position. Because if they do that, then they kind of resume the cash cow that is Alex Pereira. He gets that. Maybe they do a trilogy. Maybe they go on to have him defend against some other people. Who knows? But I think they definitely want to keep Alex Pereira going strong within the UFC. The other thing I've heard is potentially moving up to heavyweight. Now, he did say before the fight that there's still a lot of contenders at light heavyweight that he'd be interested in facing. So if they don't do that immediate rematch for whatever reason, maybe Alex Pereira wants to take some time off. He has been super busy. Maybe he wants to rest a little bit. Maybe he wants to fight somebody else in the division. Like, they could do that, right? They've got that fight with Jan Blachowicz and Carlos Ulberg coming up, and I think either one of those guys would be an interesting for a title shot. Like, if Jan loses, for example, maybe do him and Alex Pereira, and Carlos Ulberg gets the title shot, or reverse. If Jan wins, maybe you give him a title shot against Ankalaev, assuming you don't do the immediate rematch with Alex Pereira. Because they have a history there. Their last fight ended in a draw, right? Like, let's be real. Back in 2022, December 22, Ankalaev should have been champion that night, right? But the judges put it as a draw, and Dana White said it was the most boring fight ever. And now here we are, 2.5 years later. That's what's happening. He should have been champion a while ago, but it is what it is. So that's what it looks like from there. Now the question is, does Pereira go up to heavyweight, right? If he goes up to heavyweight, how does he fare? Now, I do think that would be really interesting because, like, heavyweight isn't all that deep, right? Like, there isn't a ton of talent there. I think he can beat pretty much anyone in the heavyweight division with a few exceptions, right? Like, I think he would struggle with John Jones. He'd probably struggle with Tom Aspinall. I think he'd be able to beat Cyril Gane. I think he'd be able to pretty handedly beat a lot of those guys. I think he'd probably struggle with someone like Curtis Blades. Of course, he cracks him a good one because Curtis Blades' chin isn't that greatest. So he if he cracks him with a good one, he'd probably drop him. Jailton Almeida, I think he'd struggle with. But that's pretty much it, right? Like, I think he'd do really, really well in the heavyweight division. I don't think he'd beat Aspinall, and I don't think he'd beat Jones. But nevertheless, like, trying to give him a run at heavyweight might also, like, add to his aura, his story, all these other kind of things. So that's something that I'd be really interested to see, but he has said he might stick around at light heavyweight for a little while longer. So I think the biggest thing is the immediate rematch. That's probably the most likely scenario. But I want to know, like, what did you guys think of the fight, and what did you guys think of the performance? One of the things that I'd be really interested to see is that fight with Alex Pereira rematch. I was a little bit surprised by Pereira's performance, in the sense, like, I just didn't think he'd go backwards as much, but I think that was probably because he wanted to give himself space and time to, like, see a shot coming. so that he wouldn't have to contend with the wrestling that much. Like, that was kind of the prep work that he did. So that was really interesting. What about the rest of the fight? The rest of the fights, Justin Gaethje and Fiziev, that definitely delivered. Very surprised at Fiziev's performance, right? Like, I was surprised with Gaethje's performance too, right? Fiziev's been off for 2.5 years. He's coming off of 2 losses. Both of those guys put on a spectacular fight of the night, probably performance of the night. Gaethje ended up winning, which is fantastic. He came back after a pretty incredible loss to Max Holloway. He took the time he needed to do what he needed to do in order to go and win. So that was pretty interesting as well. The last one I wanted to kind of highlight, it looks like Jalen Turner is done. He retired after losing a submission in his fight, which is pretty interesting. Like, I think that's 3 in a row now for him. So maybe that's a bit premature, but I think he's done. He's 29 years old. He doesn't feel like he's got what it takes to compete with the top guys anymore. And I definitely think that's the right decision. Like, if you feel you don't have it, better to hang it up than take too much damage, right? Because the sport's super unforgiving, and a lot of people, they stick around way too long and then they suffer way too much. Then the last thing I wanted to highlight, and you guys all saw this, what an incredible wheel kick by Ruffy to put out Bobby Green. I'm telling you guys, like, these fighting nerd guys, and I said this in another video, the fighting nerds are on a tear, right? Next month, we've got Gene Silva taking on Bryce Mitchell. Ruffy's probably going to be in a position where he's in the top 15 pretty soon. This is going to be an incredible, incredible thing that's going on. And I just can't wait to see what happens. So to recap, we've got a new champion in Magomed Ankalaev. A lot of people are kind of upset in the sense that he's a boring fighter, and I kind of agree with that. But one of the things that I do think is he will fight absolutely anybody. He's not going to pick and choose. Anytime the UFC calls him, he's going to say yes. And I think the first thing they do that immediate rematch, and then they go from there. What would you guys like to see? Who do you guys want to see fight Magomed Ankalaev next? Do you want to see the immediate rematch? Do you want to see Alex Pereira go up to heavyweight? Do you want to see him stick around at light heavyweight? Let me know what you think. Once again, thank you guys for watching. We'll see you next time.